And we are live. I'm Mini J Mac up in the top right. If you can't see me, that's fine. I still look pretty. And Zach, he is looking good. Ooh, he looks like he just got a tan, been swimming.
So mad at you for making me buy a studio light for the stream. Like
Hey, it
this is
works.
not uh, it- no one wants to see that much detail. Like everybody's good with just kind of sitting back and getting the blurry vision.
I went back and looked at some of our old, some of our old videos and how horrible they are, how
I
horrible
mean,
quality they are.
some of those were like it was our laptop camera, like the
Right.
built-in laptop camera. And I know like right after this, like I had an idea for an event, and I contacted my buddy at Logitech. And he's like, "Oh, it's a really great event. Like this was right when the pandemic started, everything was locked down. I was like, oh, I got this idea for an event. Like we'll have all these tournaments, and then we'll send cameras to the top players, and then grab their videos and put them on screen. But all the cameras everywhere were sold out because he's like, I can't even get them internally at Logitech right now because once the pandemic hit and everybody started to work from home, or Zoom for home for school or whatever it would be, everybody needed cameras. And I think everybody at that point realized, well, yeah, I've got one built in my laptop, or I use my phone for FaceTime, but it's not really that good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant for like 6 to 8 hours a day of video for sure. But I've
Somebody,
had,
somebody says
yeah,
they're paying over $300 right now for cameras.
right. Like it's like the $79 camera is tripled now because it's so hard to find, kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Switch,
Yeah.
which by the way, I heard you sold your Switch.
Yeah, didn't get played very much, so I'd rather someone
Yeah.
use it than just sit there. Hey, the people in the chat are saying it looks great, so
Yeah, that's because they all want something. What do they want? What do they want from me?
that was
Don't be
actually
nice
an
to me.
internal comment. ggCircuit internal.
Well, let's get it started. You ready? Or we need to give it
Yeah,
a couple more minutes since we just kind of,
that's playful enough for my day.
well, and again, you're recording it. So the portions of it, once we get started, will be loaded to YouTube. So if somebody misses the first part of it, they can come back and check it out. So I don't know when we talked last as a town hall with some interactive questions. I know we've done a couple of them along the way, but
I think
it's
it
been
was
a little bit of a
like the
blur.
at home release, so it's been a couple
Right.
months ago.
Yeah. Right before at home release. And again, I think at that point we're 2 or 3 weeks into the closure period. And so it's still not that there's more certainty today than there was then. And it's still very uncertain, everything, but at least we're starting to see some light in the darkness, some light in the camera feed, if
Mm-hmm.
I do say so myself. But I'm just going to do a quick breakdown of the eBash story through the pandemic. And then I've got some slides to share and some things from our survey I want to share with everybody. And then we're going to talk about what ggCircuit's been working on. And then we've got some exciting stuff to share at the end as what we're doing to help. Like this, the theme of this is really, it's the circle of life type of thing. Like I'm in negotiations with my landlord and my internet provider, everybody else. And as I go through that as a store here at eBash, I think about how we can do the same thing, like pass it on type of thing to all of our customers. And again, ggCircuit is blessed and lucky that we are where we're at. We're all healthy. We were a work from remote team to begin with. We've not had any massive layoffs. We've let a couple people go during this time, that I wish we wouldn't have. But as a whole, we're still 95% the same team we were before. We're still open for tech support 24 hours a day and answering questions for people. We've not crawled in a hole. We've just kept pushing forward. And now as everything comes out of the ashes per se, then we want to be able to put that to good use and help everybody get through it. So just to give everybody my perspective from the store here. And if you see guys popping in and out through the fish tank, my staff's back working. We still haven't decided when to open. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're all wearing masks. I've got my buff here. We had some eBash ones made that we may offer to our customers when we open if we're going to require them to wear a mask. But, as It's funny, but it's not funny, but about a week before the governor made it a rule that we had to close, we had one of our folks get a fever. And so, like, my staff that runs the store is usually between 4 to 7 people, depending on how many hours they're all working in the lock-ins. So one of them came down with a fever and couldn't come in, and they were trying to decide who should cover for them. But Sean and Dan and I, when my partners here at eBash, we just kind of said, hey, it's not worth it. Let's go ahead and close down now. That's before anybody had ruled us to close down. We're like, well, staff's sick, stay home. Everybody go home. Let's close for a week and see what happens. Little did we know, in a week later, it swept through the U.S. and everybody basically from state to state says you must be closed. So we closed about a week before we had to close. Then we waited about a week to see what would happen, and it was getting towards the end of March. And the way I pay my staff is mid-month and end of month. So we paid our staff up through the end of March, and then we laid them off because we did not know. At that point, the governor had said, you're going to be closed in April. Well, what can we do in April? We weren't sure. We were just starting to build at home for ggCircuit. So we laid the staff off for April. The PPP stuff came out. Everybody's applying for it. We applied for it, couldn't get it, couldn't get response from our bank, tried another bank, tried a third bank. In the end, the only reason eBash ended up getting it was because friends of ours, one of our partner companies, introduced ggCircuit to a bank that was offering it for our ggCircuit employees from the US to get the PPP loan. And then I asked that bank if we could do eBash's PPP loan through them as well. That's the only reason we got it. Now, I know that's different now. I feel like there's still money available, and folks in the US that want to apply can still apply. The key is just finding the right bank. That's what ended up coming out to us. But so on May 14th, we got our PPP money. And at that point, we had to spend it within 8 weeks. So, of course, we immediately brought everybody back to work. And all we did at that point was relayed out the store for 50% capacity, 6-foot distance between everybody, cleaning everything, and started pulling out old equipment out of our warehouse to clean and sell for curbside pickup. That's been our plan since May 16th when I brought all the folks back. Now, we're still trying to decide when to open. There was a bounce house company in our city that just opened a week ago, and the state called them up and told them to shut down again because they're considered an amusement and they're not allowed to be open yet. I know not very many people have seen government intervention in a lot of these cases, but for us, we've seen it. And so again, I don't want to put my staff in the middle of a negotiation with should you wear a mask or should you not wear a mask with, most of my staff are 22 to 26 years old. So I don't want to put one of them with a 45-year-old parent or a 65-year-old grandparent and arguing about who should or shouldn't wear a mask. So we're just kind of still waiting. We may open the 14th of this month in June. We may open the 1st of July. I kind of am letting other people navigate the waters. But, one of the interesting things that happened along this journey for me is that I still just didn't understand how this was all going to work out, where if we're expected to be 50% capacity, or that may be the case for the next 6 months to 9 months, how do we keep paying all of our other bills at 50% or 100% capacity? So, you rent a space based on filling it up. You have heating and cooling for the space to heat and cool it. Now, I know, sure, if there's 50 people instead of 100 people in my building, it's not going to use as much electricity. But, at the same time, my electric bill is not going to go from $1,200 a month to $600 a month. It's going to go from probably $1,200 to $800 or $900. The thing that was positive for me was that when the landlord worked with me a few weeks ago and we met, they agreed to give us a reduced rent for April and May, the 2 months we were closed, which again, I understand where they're coming from. They have bills to pay, it's their property, but at the same time, we made $0 in April and May. We were not open any of those months. We were not open for half of March. So for 2.5 months, we've been closed with no income. We basically just turned off all of the bills, turned everything off, and the bank account for eBash went down to zero. I mean, there was $500 in the account, and I turned auto pay off on everything so that we could kind of manage it. And I thought, what do we do next? We got a little bit of money from the EIDL grant, $7,000. It was $1,000 per employee. We had 7 employees when we closed. So we got $7,000 from that. And then we got the PPP loan. The landlord reducing the rent helps. And obviously we'll use some of the PPP money for that, but it still doesn't give me a lot of confidence in this moving into the future. To put in perspective for everybody what we do, and I don't care that this is public or not, but our lease here at this space is $5,100 a month, US. So every month I spend $5,100. I've been in this building for 15 years. We've been in business for 16, almost 17 years now. If you take 5,000 times 15 years of rent, you get $900,000 I've paid in rent for this building over 15 years. And that, again, there's nothing I would go back and do differently. However, in retrospect, looking back, you're like, at what point should I have said, should we keep leasing or should we go look to buy a place? So I'm in the mindset now of looking for a facility that I can move eBash into, that ggCircuit can also have like a lab environment to work in here in Indiana, where we continue to build tools and features and software for customers of our own. Like that's always been my go-to for everything we do for ggCircuit, is that I do what I would do in my store. I think these things are all going to take place for all of us. Like if you're in a 5 or 6 or 8 year lease, talk to your landlord. There's probably negotiations there. Our landlord is talking about letting us out of the lease early. And if we do that, then we will look for maybe another space where we can buy a building. It won't be as prime of a location, but I've been in business 15 years, and I feel like our customers to a certain degree will follow us to a new location, whether or not it's a prime location or not. I can't afford to run this business at 50% income, paying the rates that I paid before this. And even with the internet provider and everybody else, we're going back to the negotiating board and saying, what can we do to make this transition time easier as we all figure out what the new normal is going to be on the other side of this. So I want to share some charts to give everybody some positive lights into where we're going. So I'm going to try to do this, JMac, and probably screw up your stream, but we practiced a little bit, so it's not like we're total noobs. Let me know, JMac, when you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. And it's not real important that you see all the data and everything else. I don't want to zoom in a lot. It's not that important, the numbers on it, but you can see the idea is that, this heartbeat graph is how many users logged in daily in the ggLeap system across the world. All right. So it's every weekend it's up and then it goes down during the week. It's like a heartbeat. It's always been that way. So just like a regular heartbeat, it's happening week after week. Everybody's busier Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Everybody's not as busy Monday through Thursday. You can see where it fell off the table the second week of March and plummeted down to nearly nothing. And then you can see towards, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but towards the end of this, it's starting to creep back up. Now, the second graph, which is way more interesting because it puts in perspective from the lowest point we were as far as users to where we are today. So if you look at this graph, it looks a lot healthier because this is a true representation of an increase in customer visits in our network. I don't give a crap if your store doors are open. We all should care less if we can open our doors. What we care about is if somebody walks through the door. Like this is a graph of active logins in centers in our network. And you can see it's on the rise at a very, very consistent pace over the past 6 weeks. Now, we fully expect that to really increase at a vertical manner in the next month because a lot of the centers in the US especially are starting to reopen as of June 1. So this will be the first weekend coming up where a lot of centers I feel like in our network are going to be open. Now, one very interesting thing about all of this, and then I'm going to go into some of the stuff ggCircuit's been working on, but this, if you remember, we did a survey and we talked to everybody. And again, we're trying to get this cleaned up. There's some, like we took everybody's names down in the survey and we don't want to publish names of everybody that responded, but this is just a screen of a couple of the questions. So this top pie chart, when you reopen, how long do you think it'll be before the level of business returns to where it was before you closed? And nobody thought it would come back right away. The red part of that pie chart is 6 months. The blue part is 3 months. Orange you can barely see is 9, and green is more than a year.
Can you do a control plus on that a couple times?
Yeah. So
there you go.
So, the key to this to me is that in surveying all of you out there, and this is folks in the US and Europe and Asia and everywhere around the world, most of us feel like it's going to be 3 to 6 months before we're back to normal. All right. So if you add up those two things, 85% of the respondents said it's going to be 3 months or 6 months. A few think it's more than a year, and a few think it's 9 months. Again, it's hard to get a good answer on this because we all want to be optimistic. Like, we want it to come back, but you have to be realistic at the same time. Like, do we think it will come back to the way it was before? So we'll try to maybe make these available to folks. Like, I'll try to get them uploaded where people can see them after this call. But the thing that I wanted to show with those is that there is hope. There is, I got to shrink my thing down so I can see my notes again. There is a trending back to being open and players showing back up at centers, which is a positive thing for me. And just to be realistic, to the nth degree with everybody about the pandemic, and folks from outside the country probably would, I have no idea what everyone thinks of the U.S. because we're just so politically divided on everything, as you can see from current topics, and rioting and protesting in the U.S. Like, there's such a divide in our country between different opinions and things. I can tell you that from my perspective, whether it's my good friend J Mac, who you can see in the mini picture at the top, or my wife, or my in-laws, or, other people that I know and are close to a lot of people that are high risk. And so, like, this is not something that you wanted to just bet that it was not as serious as it may or may not have been, because it was, real people and real lives that we're talking about. But at the same time, I think that if we're careful as we reopen this thing, especially in the Northern Hemisphere as it's summertime, it does seem like it's a good chance for us to reopen again and take precautions and make sure that we are probably doing the things we should have done always in our stores. Not that any of us run dirty locations, but, should we be wiping down every single controller in between every single usage between every player instead of once a day? Our store wiped them down once a day, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week is all. Now we're going to do them after every single use. We should have been doing that before, whether it's the stomach flu, whether it's any other kind of sickness, like, we should just be as clean as possible in all of our environments. The other thing is that I think the one thing I hope that comes out of this is that we all can just respect other people's opinions and not feel like that we've got to have our own agenda and fulfill our own agenda in these situations. So if a land center wants to require somebody to wear masks, then everybody in there should just say, well, if I want to attend your land center, I'm going to follow your rules. I brought it up to somebody, I think my parents, when I saw them for the first time a week or two ago since the pandemic lockdown, I said, it's kind of like no shirt, no shoes, no service. Like, there's rules that we can make that are required to frequent our establishments, that as long as it makes us comfortable, we just want people to respect our rules. Like, it could be as simple as, like, in our rule, we try to not allow foul language in the lobby. Like, we have private rooms if you're older and you want to go back there, but we will say something to you, and if you blurt out an F-bomb too many times, we'll ask you to leave the building. That's one of our rules. Is that a constitutional right or not? I don't know, but it is our right to run our business and our establishment however we want to run it. And if you don't like it, like, it's not that we're against your opinion, but, you just have to go to a different land center that maybe allows that sort of behavior in that land center. So what has ggCircuit been doing during this time? All right. So as I mentioned before at the beginning of the call, we've not closed. We've not stopped working. In fact, it's been the reverse of that. I feel like we've really ramped up some projects behind the scenes that all the land centers are going to really take advantage of as they come back open again. But for us now, just kind of evaluating the survey, and as everybody starts to open again, and with three or four of our new products that we're putting together, we just kind of came together in the last week, and we've decided, what is our goal here? Like, what should we be focused on for the centers? And again, I think our biggest message here is that we just want to be able to help centers open up again and make their customers comfortable and make their environment comfortable, and whatever we can do to help ease those restrictions and ease those new ways of doing business, that it's not seen as like a barrier to doing business with us and our centers, but perhaps it even makes doing business with all of our centers easier, and things that we would have liked to have done before. So, and we'll address some of these questions in the Q&A coming up, but, like touchless interactions with players coming in your center? Is it possible for a player to reserve a seat and pay for it ahead of time before they arrive at your center? Absolutely. We can put that in place. And those are the sort of things that we're bringing to the top of the roadmap, because we're like, you know what, this is not that it wasn't a great feature we wanted to do before, but now it becomes top of the list because you may be at 50% capacity. You may not want to have a line at the door. You may not want to have walk-in customers. Easiest way to control that is to post on your website, here's a map of all the stations, what's reserved, what's not reserved. Pick one, reserve it with your login, pay for it ahead of time to make sure that we're not reserving you a seat that you don't come and use and we don't give it to somebody else. And put those tools into place so the centers can decide what their rules are going to be around their center. A couple things. Let's just talk about some specific things, and then we'll get some Q&A, because I don't want to talk for very long before we open it up for some questions. We got a bunch of them that were entered in, JMac, I know, via email, via post online and other places. And then obviously anybody that's watching the stream live, feel free to post questions in there, and JMac will get them and put them onto my sheet for me. Let's talk specifically about a couple products. So first and foremost, let's talk about ggRock. And again, JMac will do a good job of this later, breaking this down. So if some folks just want updates on ggRock, he can say, go to this time, or maybe even split this part of the video out in its own segment. So ggRock has been in Pioneer Access. This is how we did ggLeap when it launched, and this is how we're doing ggRock. Pioneer Access first, which is you buy in at a dollar amount that gets you a future discount on the product. And when you buy in, you get to use it free until we get to version 1. So ggRock is still in Pioneer Access as of today. Our goal, and again, these are all brand new announcements we're just making today on the stream. Our goal now is we're going to be out of Pioneer Access at the end of this month. So we're going to end that a little bit earlier than we wanted to, because we want to get into early access, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So Pioneer Access will end on June 30th. That'll be the last chance you can get to buy into Pioneer Access. There's 3 levels. The level that you buy in gets you a bigger discount on future cost of running it. It'll also get you to use the software, again, at no charge right now, all the way through early access period until we get to version 1. Our estimate of version 1 is January 1st of 2021 at this point. So even if you join Pioneer this month, you'll still get it free till the end of this year, and then you'll get a discount based on the level you buy in. So just be aware, this is the last call this month for Pioneer Access. Then July 1st, we're going to open up early access, and we're going to do it exactly the same as we did it for ggLeap. So there'll be 3 tiers based on how big you are. It'll be a very, very reasonable amount. I'm just going to give you ggLeap's early access because I remember it. There was a 29, and now I'm going to forget it. I should have wrote it down, JMac. There's going to be a 29, a 79, and a 99, and a 149 based on how many PCs you got in your network. Just fixed rate. It won't be per system. We may even make it more simple than that. We haven't decided exactly, but it'll be an extremely reasonable rate to start using ggRock in early access on July 1st. The other thing is that because we want to help, and again, this is entirely stuff that's under our control and ways that we can help centers the next 3 to 6 months. We're not expecting people to make commitments for a year or 2 years or 3 years. I can't commit to that to my store. I don't know if I'm going to close my store. I don't know if I'm going to move it. I don't know if I'm going to stay in the same building, just like the rest of you all. But you know what would matter to me, and this is what we want to extend to everybody else, is like, what can you do to help us next month? You know, like if I'm going to open in June or I'm going to open in July, and I'm used to paying $200 a month for my software, what can you do to help me with that bill? We're here to help. Like, I can't promise you any sort of definite discounts or anything else, but if you're struggling and you need help, call us up. Like, it could be that we just work on, you know, adding ggRock to your ggLeap subscription, or giving you a discount on ggRock for its early access so that you can spend some money on buying the hardware this month to get a server built for ggRock or whatever it is. Like, we're basically going to take every one of your calls, and our team has talked about it internally. You know, just find out where they're at. Every country is different. Every state is different. Like, tell us what you're going through. Let us know what's going on. Tell us how we can help. It kind of goes that way too. But, you know, we're going to ask you to be mindful of the fact that we can't do everything for everybody, but we're kind of doing the same thing with features. Like, again, if there's ways that we can help you get permission to open again in your country because you need to have online ordering, let us know. And if there's 10 of you, if there's 20 of you, if there's 30 of you, just talk to us and let us know, because if there's enough of you, then we're going to accelerate those pieces of the roadmap up, because there's nothing better than I'd like to help 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 of you get open again. So ggRock Pioneer Access ends in June. Early access will start in July. It'll be very reasonably priced. It'll be such that everybody can afford it. Let's just put it that way. If you want more information about it, reach out to our sales folks, start some conversations with them now. If you're going to open July 1 and you want to get ready for it, we can get you the specs so you can go ahead and get your server configured for ggRock if you want. Second thing is that our new event system, it's getting ready to take place. It's in beta right now. It's very, very interesting, some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes for us. Like, we have some really big clients we're working on projects with, and I won't talk about any of them specifically, but there'll be a lot of trickle-down benefits for all the centers in our network. And as we build these solutions, we build them into tools that can be reused over and over and over again. So one of the most exciting ones that we've worked on during the pandemic, besides at home, which we'll talk about in a second, is the new event system beta. Okay, so right now you can build your own events that are automated events, just like ggCircuit has built over the years, where you take a specific game and pick out a bunch of different statistical endpoints, create a fixed time event, a fixed match event. There's all kinds of, like, it is so robust. There's 1,000 decisions you can make when building your event. And that'll become available in your at-home client. And then in 2 weeks, it'll become available in ggLeap in your client, in your centers as well. So you'll be able to run a custom Fortnite event and give away coins in your system. Because again, the coins are turning back on for you to control however you want in your system as your own local loyalty system. So a lot of things have changed since we've gone dark as a pandemic lockdown inside of ggLeap. Get back in, launch the thing again, get familiar with all the new stuff we've put in it, because there's a lot of things changing coming out of the pandemic. The event system beta then kind of leads us into at home. At home, we're still offering at home as long as we can at no charge to you all. Keep in mind, we have a cost delivering that. If somebody out there goes and gets 10,000 players to join their at-home network, like, everything we run at AWS costs us money. So we're going to try to shoulder the burden of that cost for all the centers during this time as long as we can. But just be aware that if you get a lot of success with it, we're going to have to probably knock on your door and be like, ooh, you got 5,000 players now actively using it. That's awesome. Let us help you monetize it so that you can help pay us some sort of license fee to cover our cost at AWS to deliver that service. So keep that in mind. But for right now, at home will still be, if you have a ggLeap subscription, you'll be able to activate players at home to log into your center at no extra cost to you. We do have some licenses for at home going out for bigger entities. So if you have some other projects or stuff you'd like to work on that have nothing to do with your LAN center, let us know, because we're starting to license at home for a few other entities for other projects that aren't necessarily about connecting players to your local center. So we've got some of that stuff going on. And again, we'll get into the questions next. This is just kind of my last thing, but the theme of all of this is, and this has happened already. This is not new, but I wanted to make sure that publicly we tell everybody to reach out, because folks have reached out and we've just listened and we've gotten on calls with them and we've just said, hey, here's our pricing. Here's our standard set of features. Here's what we can do for you. What are you dealing with? What's your situation? And we've actually had a lot of centers come to us in the past 3 weeks from other software providers saying, hey, I've never used you guys because you've always been too expensive for my country or my situation or my economy or my size of center, whatever the reason is. But we love that you guys are building these tools for us. Can we meet in the middle somewhere? Can we find a way that we can try your software out in this month-to-month time that we're all living in? Again, we're not asking anybody to commit to anything. I'm not asking anybody to say, hey, pay for 2 years of access, because we don't all know what's going to be happening in 2 years. We're just saying, hey, what can we do to help you this month, next month, maybe the month after that? Let's just all look at these short-term roadmaps, say what's the most important thing for all of us right now to get open, make our stores safe, make our players feel safe to come back to our stores again. And hopefully we'll be back to some sort of normalcy, albeit much cleaner stores, in the next 3 to 6 months. And we can go back to then figuring out, okay, now let's ramp up and figure out how we can fill these stores back up to 75 to 100% capacity. All right. Overall, JMac, any thoughts on everything we talked about? Anything I left out in those discussions before we hit the Q&A? I can't hear you. You may be recording yourself, but
No, I just
oh, there you go.
didn't hit the mute button hard enough. Become weak during this lockdown.
I've withered away to a shell of my formal self while
I
I've been locked
have
in the case.
muscle atrophy. Um, no, just mostly just scuttlebutt discussion in the chat. Nothing major. But no, I think we should go to Q&A.
All right, so let me run through these cues. Do you want to? Are you just going to add them to the bottom of my sheet, or do you just want to bring them up verbally when I
I'm
get them
adding them
going?
to your sheet.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if I'm going to say where all these questions are from because, like, then I don't know if the people want to shout out, that they wrote some questions or not. But a lot of them are coming from all over the world, which is great. We've got questions from Australia and from Russia and from Denmark and from Greece, from the U.S. and other stuff. So, all right. So let's just run through these. One question again. I apologize because I know some folks are from different languages and they're translating into English. So I'm just going to kind of ad lib these questions for what I know they're probably asking. Somebody asked about Wake on Land. A very, very interesting part of all of this is that ggRock and ggLeap combine together to form Voltron. That's one of my favorite Peloton instructors. That's his description when he starts every ride. From his cadence and his resistance come together to form Voltron. ggLeap and ggRock can come together to provide the functionality for Wake on Land. So you'll want to, if you're interested in Wake on Land, I mean, it's very technical, but it's also very simple. Like ggLeap is a cloud-based system. We, other than clients running in the network, which are all off when you open your store in the morning, we don't have a device running on your local network. So I can't wake up your computers from the cloud unless something on the network is awake. Well, guess what? ggRock is an edge device. It's a server that sits on your LAN and it's always on. And as long as it's on, ggLeap and ggRock talk together and we can send a signal to ggRock and then it sends out messages to your PCs to turn on. So that is built into the functionality of those two being merged together. So either Pioneer Access now or Early Access in July, you'll be able to test that out. There's a couple questions in here about some bugs I don't want to hit, but some people are asking about different UI interfaces. And I get this a lot. And I understand, like, we have one UI, we're working on a version 2 UI coming out, let's just say later this fall. Some folks just want to be able to go into admin mode and control things. None of those things are impossible for us. It just comes down to road mapping priorities for things in the short term. So again, if we're all just living month to month, probably fine dealing with the current UI with other things taking precedence over trying to get some flexibility and being able to use a desktop mode or an admin mode. It's not impossible. We've done that before for other, enterprise clients, retail installations. We've done some fun things, so we could do that. Next question is, can we do center versus center tournaments or any way to arrange? Boom. Guess what we got for you? The new event creator is built just for that. So the idea with the event creator is you can create your own events to test it now, but soon you'll be able to invite other centers to your events. And so this next question on this one answers that as much as well. Like this center's in Europe. Like, will there be some European events coming up? Well, what we can do is we can at least make it where you all can reach out and work on things together. I'll go back to the original ggCircuit formats of tournaments. Centers all chip in a couple $100 each, create a prize pool, and then each of your centers can then offer that tournament to all your players and have a much larger prize pool that each of you did not have to fund the whole prize pool. So if you get 10 centers to each chip in $100, you have $1,000 prize pool. And then each of you can charge entry fees to your players, and you only have to cover $100. But your player gets a chance at $1,000 prize pool. It's a very cool way of kind of doing crowdsourcing or crowdfunding of an event. All right, let's move on to some more here. When do you expect to have an app available? That's another tough one because, like, having an actual app versus like what we're pushing now in the next couple of months is the idea that each of you will have a page, that landing page that you can link to from your website where players can log in and reserve seats and all of that stuff. We just need to make an extremely mobile friendly version of that web page, branded with your center and everything else on it, so they feel comfortable using that with a third-party app like Stripe or Square or PayPal or somebody to take the payments that also has support for mobile, that the person may have an app to pay for on their phone. That's our focus right now. An actual app, the problem is, and I don't know if anybody's thought through this more than we have, but if we release an app, is it a ggCircuit app? Is it a ggLeap app? Is it a GG Champions app? We can't probably launch an app for every one of you because each app has to be approved and go through the process. So like there can't be an eBash app unless eBash wants to pay to get it in the Android store and the Apple store. So like we have that weirdness where we're trying not to be a consumer company. We want to be a business to business company. We want to help all you reach your players, not us reach the players directly. If we go the path of an app, it's hard for us to brand that and make that more of a relationship between you and your players than it is, they'd have to make a relationship with us and there'd be a ggCircuit app. So no app in the near future, but we definitely want to have app functionality in our mobile version of we're calling it the portal for your center, where players can log in. And you guys are seeing that. Like any of you that tested at home, you're already starting to dabble in that. Like you can go to the generic page and find your center, but we can also have a URL that goes directly to your landing page that looks like your center, that has your logo, that has your colors on it. And you see that in the at-home branding as well. So you can upload your own images behind it and that sort of thing. Is it possible that at home will be a permanent possibility for customers who can't go to the center? Absolutely. Like we didn't build at home to just dick around during the pandemic. Like we didn't have anything else to do. Like at home was in our roadmap for next year. At some point we knew we'd have to reach out to the players that can't come to the store on a regular basis and try to engage them. I wish we would have built this earlier so that we were all prepared for the pandemic, but none of us could predict the future. None of us had any idea that was coming. At home was meant to be built specifically as a product for us, and it's not going anywhere. In fact, I don't know if most of you realize this, but it could potentially be what unlocks everything we've dreamed of doing for ggCircuit, because I'll just give you some more stats. So in our network on a regular basis, I think I mentioned this on the at-home call, but a regular player visits a game center in our network 2.5 times a month. All right. So a unique player visits us 2.5 days a month. What do they do the other 27.5 days? They're sitting at home. They're playing games. They're not sitting at home doing nothing. The only time that they play games is not in your center. They're playing games at home. So we want to engage them at home. And if we can get them to come to our center 5 days instead of 2.5 days, we're all pumped. And maybe we can encourage them to come back to the center with regular activities at home that result in them qualifying for something at our center. So I talked to Dan out in Phoenix and we talked about the size of centers and how many stations there are. And I'm like, you know what? We could make our LAN centers more of like the prize, like main stage. Like if you do well at home, you get the opportunity to go to the Friday night lock-in because there's now only 50 seats instead of 100. So there's a lot of cool stuff we can do with at home in the future. There's a question in here about a launcher. I didn't know how to answer this, J-Max. This is going to be your question because I have no idea. Like, just for us with GG Leap, we work with as many launchers as possible. I'll address the Microsoft one because we're very close to Microsoft. We're talking to Microsoft a lot about bundling Windows licenses into GG Rock, saving everybody a ton of money because we can get an IoT license, which is much more efficient because the only thing we all use our PCs for is to run GG Leap as an application. I know we launch games from it, but the games are launched from GG Leap. So it ends up being an Internet of Things application that can get us Windows licenses. And then because we were working directly with Windows license folks, we can get around the ability to launch Windows applications, specifically games for Windows and other stuff. And obviously have the latest bundles of version of Windows included with GG Rock, for our images for everybody to boot from. So this one specifically is about the Bethesda launcher. Again, there's ways to launch these games through other platforms. That's the route we go because we have robust solutions for other platforms. I don't know anything about the Bethesda launcher. J-Mac, is it?
I think it's just one of those like priority things. This specific person wanted the Bethesda launcher for Doom Eternal, and they could just it's just one of those decisions of like, do we have enough clamoring for the Bethesda launcher to do an auto login where they could launch the Bethesda launcher and log it in manually, and if that's becoming a problem in a large percentage of centers, then we'll make it a priority. But that's the only person I've ever seen request it.
Yeah, it's really hard because, I get, like I've had weird games when I ran my center full time. I had weird games that I loved and I was more enthusiastic about those games. And so we would have events for games that no other center would even dream of having events for. So, we want to have the flexibility to do things around games and events and things that you're interested in or your staff's interested in, because that's, like it catches on with the customers. So we will try to do our best to support as many things as we can. But as a software company for thousands of locations around the world, we have to be conscious of the mass of the centers producing the list of priorities for our roadmap. So I will say that, like, there are some things going on behind the scenes I'm really excited about, and I'll just tease everybody with this one. So, we're building our own internal game stat engine. And we've kind of gone back to the drawing board on this for a couple big enterprise clients, but also just because we've become so frustrated over the years of, like, only being able to run events and build events around games that we can get stats for. But in the reality is that we have a lot of smart folks in our development team that know how to do this. And so we've sat down during the pandemic, we've started the process, and we're about, I'm going to say 60% of the way with finishing our game stat engine that will power a lot of these solutions in the at-home client and at ggLeap at the centers. And now all of a sudden we can make adding stats for games a lot easier. So it could get to the point where a center owner could use our stat engine to go in and teach our machine learning technology where to get the stats from a game visual screen. And they can have stats for a game that they just like in their center that nobody else could care about. And all of a sudden now they can track World of Warcraft stats if that's a big game for their center, but nobody else really cared about it. That's a terrible example because World of Warcraft's popular. Maple Story. I like the game Maple Story. Love to have some sort of contest around Maple Story, but there's no stats system for Maple Story. However, our new game engine will be able to create stats out of the images that show up in the Maple Story screen. So that'll be a pretty fun one. The next question is about guest system. And I think this is kind of an ongoing one, but we're getting a lot of interest from centers in other regions of the world that we're not as big in currently. And we want to be conscious of the way that other centers run their businesses. And yes, we will be addressing some features in and around the guest system in the next few weeks. It's important for us. It's been on the roadmap for a while. There's enough people asking about it that, make it interesting for us to pursue that. And again, we want to be as robust as possible, but at the same time, we're also like, we're valuing each of these requests in a way that's like, does it help you get open and get back on your feet really quickly right now? I mean, it's a very weird situation we're in, but our roadmap before was like 6 months to 9 months to a year. Okay. What's the most pressing thing happening for these centers in the next 9 months, 12 months, whatever? Now it's like, what's the most pressing things for centers in June? That's kind of the way we're looking at it. So our focus has been on the event system, the game stat engine. We're going to start working on some of the remote booking capabilities coming up. And then obviously ggRock, we feel like it's a great time while our centers are not that busy for folks to implement ggRock and get it put in place, because you're not disrupting. Most of your stores are still not open yet. So it's a great time to put a boot solution into your center. Or, if you're on another boot solution you want to move over, it's a great time to do that as well, because you don't have to worry about a full store every day, of customers that you're disappointing. All right. That's it for me on the questions, JMac. We're doing pretty good on 45 minutes.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else pressing that I haven't answered in the chat.
Yeah, and again, this will get a lot of feedback when we put it on YouTube. And the theme, again, is just get into Discord, get into Intercom, which is our chat system on the websites or in the client, open a ticket, open a conversation with one of our staff members, and start asking us about these things, especially if you're not using ggRock yet and you want to use it, you want to figure out what date can I use it and be aware of what the hardware requirements are and those sort of things. Ask us now. If you're struggling and you're trying to figure out, how do I open again, or how do I get my subscription started again so I can view these things, we'll work with you. If you have 50 stations and you're not yet open again, we've been doing this for a lot of folks. We'll just start you up with a 5 PC subscription, like to get you back in, to get at home turned on, to get ready for ggRock if you want to. You don't have to pay us a full month for 100 PCs before you're open. We're we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure you guys get through this and get open. And I don't want to see a bunch of centers closing. I just saw somebody announce they were closing that's been in business for a long time. I won't call them out on stream, but it breaks my heart that people have made it for years and years and years and years, and this is the final straw for them closing down. I don't want to see that. I want us to, if it may be rough during this time, but if we work together, and if there's anything ggCircuit can do to help everybody, we're going to help you make it through this to the other side, because getting some money out of your pocket the next 3 or 4 months doesn't matter to us if you're not in business in a year. We need everybody to be in business in a year from now. We want there to be 2 to 5 million players active in our network in a year, so that we can have all these fun events happening at the centers, at the homes, pulling the people out of the homes, coming back to the centers again. That's what we want. So any of you that we can help you stay in business, work on technology that'll help you become more streamlined, save some staff costs, perhaps, online reservations, those sort of things, payment processing built into the clients. Those are things we're working on, trying to help everybody get through this. That's what our goal is. So
the only other thing that popped in here real quick was, do we know how coins will work in the new GG Leap? And I just said back to 1 coin per minute, but is there anything else you want to add on to that?
Yeah, so if you test the event system, one of the things that we're going to be able to do is you can create an event or just an offer that includes some sort of coin bonus. You can create, like, the system by default will churn out 1 coin a minute, just like it always has. We'll put in multipliers if you'd rather give 2 times as many out. You can, like, coins now will become your thing. By the way, we may rename them. We may call them bits, or we may call them points, or we may call them something else, just to try to make sure everybody understands, like, this is turning this over to the centers and letting each center decide what they want their loyalty system to be. They're not going to be interchangeable between centers. There will be something we're working on with a big partner 2 months from now that'll be a robust tournament system and it's not any partner any of you know, so don't think that it's anybody that you all know. It's a brand new partner that came to us. So there'll be a new way to buy tickets and play in events for cash prizes in our system all around the world, that will need to use some sort of currency to move money around from country to country with. Kind of similar to the way we pay out with PayPal to the centers now, but we just need a way to track it. So we may end up using GG or GG coins for that system. So we may rename the center points to, again, points or bits or something else, or we may leave it coins. I don't know. I've seen the mock-ups. Ross wanted me to make sure and mention it, so I'm glad you brought it up. It is coming out. It was due out this week. It'll be out next week. It's got a cool new feature that shows the player the next prize they're eligible for, or one they've qualified for, right inside the interface. And again, you set up your own prizes, you set up your own rates. Everything is in the center's control. The only thing that's not decided yet is will they be called coins or not. Just be aware they are yours. Center owners, they're yours now. You can turn them on, turn them off, assign them at whatever rate you want to, give them away free, give away bonuses on Tuesdays, add some as a big pool of prizes to one of your challenges you're making in our system, however you want to use them. But they're only redeemable in your store as well. Keep that in mind. Like, whatever these are called, some player can't take them from your store and go use them at another store. They're only for yours. So there'll be eBash bits or eBash points or eBash coins here in eBash, only used inside of eBash.
Coolio.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining live. For those of you that watched it on demand on YouTube, shoot us some questions. If you've got questions, reach out like always. If you need it to just a verbal info@ggcircuit.com, shoot an email to that email. Gets to everybody in the organization, and we'll get you the right people, and we'll start talking to you and finding out how we can help you.